For the last half century or so, almost every president has come to office pledging publicly or privately to get to the bottom of UFOs. I'm talking Truman, Obama, and a lot of other folks. So let's establish who did, why they did, and what they accomplished. For starters, Obama. He's just like us. Well, in one way at least. The former president wanted to know whether there are really other life forms out there or not. In an appearance on the Late Late Show back in 2021, Obama confessed this. The truth is that when I came into office, I asked, I was like, all right, is there the lab somewhere where we're keeping the alien specimens and spaceships? And they did a little bit of research and the answer was no. It was a remarkable statement and one that hinted at how long-standing and real the mystery of UFOs was, even to commanders-in-chief, who presumably would have had access to answers if there might be some. But then Obama said more about UFOs, and this is where things really got interesting. Obama's admission that there are in fact footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know about exactly what they are is kind of intriguing. We can't explain how they moved. Their trajectory is in keeping with a broader acknowledgement by official arms of the government after decades of denial that UFOs are real. So, anything else to say? When Ronald Reagan defeated Carter, his presidency ended up being fundamentally shaped by the intersection of UFOs and American culture. Now, upon his election to the presidency in 1981, he had pulled together a space advisory council that included leading sci-fi writers, a team he'd kept in place even after the presidential transition was complete, and governed through anecdotes and experiences from movies. So early in his second term, he asked his Soviet counterpart a seemingly off-the-wall question. Apparently, he and Mikhail Gorbachev had come to Lake Geneva for an arms control summit. But on a private walk around the lake, Reagan turned to his Cold War enemy and said, "What would you do if the United States were suddenly attacked by someone from outer space? Would you help us?" Gorbachev later recounted, "I said no doubt about it." He said, "We too." So that's interesting. Having established some unlikely common ground between the two during this lakeside stroll, Reagan was able to negotiate nuclear arms reduction treaties that significantly altered an arms race that threatened humanity. Apparently, Ronald Reagan had encountered a UFO while flying in a Cessna Citation near Bakersfield, California back in 1974. Reagan's pilot that night, Bill Painter, later recounted noticing a strange object several hundred yards behind their plane. It was a fairly steady light until it began to accelerate. Then it appeared to elongate. Then the light took off. It went up at a 45-degree angle at a high rate of speed. Apparently everybody on the plane was surprised, and the UFO went from a normal cruise speed to a fantastic speed instantly. So if you give an airplane power, it's going to accelerate, but not like a hot rod, and apparently that's what this one was like. Reagan was wowed. It went straight up into the heavens. Now, he would often use an analogy about an alien attack in a speech to the United Nations, saying, "Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?" Now, his frequent references to the alien invasions didn't sit well with all his staff. According to famed biographer Lou Cannon, National Security Advisor Colin Powell would roll his eyes and say to his staff, "Here come the little green men again." So what did Reagan know that the rest of us don't? Ever since the modern UFO age began during Harry Truman's administration, presidents have nosed around hoping to find the truth. In 1947 and 1948, waves of flying saucer sightings captured the public imagination. The Pentagon feared they represented not aliens, but allegedly Soviet spacecrafts built by kidnapped Yahtzee rocket scientists. And as the sightings increased month by month, Truman's own interest peaked. One afternoon in 1948, he summoned his military aide, Colonel Robert Landry, to the Oval Office and talked about UFO reports and what might be the meaning for all these rather way-out reports of sightings, and the subject in general. All manners of objects and things were being seen in the sky by people. Now, Truman told Landry that he hadn't given much serious thought to the reports, but he was worried about the possibility of new and underestimated threats. If there was any evidence of a strategic threat to the national security, the collection and evaluation of UFO data by Central Intelligence warranted more intense study and attention at the highest government level. Direct quote from the president, by the way. Moving forward, he wanted a quarterly report from Landry and the Air Force on whether any of the UFO sightings presented any real danger. So over the rest of his presidency, Landry regularly provided said briefings, but as he later recalled in an oral history, nothing of substance considered credible or threatening to the country was ever received from intelligence. But the sightings never fully went away, and solid explanations never materialized. Truman himself eavesdropped on Landry as he phone-banked Air Force officers in an unsuccessful search of answers to a wave of UFO sightings over the Capital Region in 1952. Just a little fun fact for you. As the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton's framed portrait hung in nearly every government office around the country, and at least one imaginary one in Hollywood. The office of FBI Assistant Director Walter Skinner, the fictional boss of special agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully, the protagonists of The X-Files. As millions tuned in every Friday night on Fox to watch the criminal profiler Mulder and medical doctor Scully work to uncover the truth about extraterrestrials circling ever closer to an alien invasion, Clinton's very real administration also found itself repeatedly considering the possibility of life out there. Like his Oval Office predecessors, the former Arkansas governor had expressed interest in aliens as soon as he had taken the oath of office. When Webb Hubbell, Clinton's longtime friend, started as the Associate Attorney General, Clinton gave him specific marching orders. Webb, if I put you over at justice, I want you to find the answers to 2 questions for me. 1, who killed JFK, and 2, are there UFOs? And he was dead serious in this statement. Now, Hubbell looked into both, but wasn't satisfied with the answers he was getting. As the years passed, Clinton's interest in UFOs, and specifically the idea that the government wasn't leveling with the American people about what it knew, never seemed far from his mind. Responding to a question from someone named Ryan during a 1995 trip to Ireland, he said, "No, as far as I know, an alien spacecraft did not crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. And then quipped, "Ryan, if the United States Air Force did recover alien bodies, they didn't tell me about it either, and I want to know." And finally for today, Jimmy Carter spotted a UFO while waiting for a Lions Club event to start on January 6th of 1969. Now, the Lions Club was one of the most important networks of Carter's life. He'd followed his father into the service group and risen in its ranks by 1969 to be a district governor, in charge of about 56 clubs in southwestern Georgia, a network that provided him important visibility as a rising politician, and one that he'd credit later for stoking his ambition to run for governor in the first place. So that January night, it was about 7:15 p.m., just after dark on what weather records would describe as a clear, cold night, and he was standing outside a little one-story restaurant in Leary, a town of less than 1,000 residents, with a group of about a dozen other men waiting for the meeting to start at about 7:30 when a bright approaching light caught their attention. One of Carter's club colleagues pointed to the horizon. "Look, over in the west." The men watched a bright light appear to come towards them, and then, But apparently, once in the Oval Office, Carter never followed up on his pledge. Whatever the government was hiding would stay hidden. Well, that's it for me once again, folks. I've been Alexa, your resident Ookie Spooky Girly. See y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.